Hello and welcome to Cisco Router Training 101. My name is Don Crawley. I'm from soundtraining.net. We're the Seattle, Washington-based publisher of learning resources and provider of accelerated training for IT professionals. This time we're doing part 3 of our 3-part series on Cisco Router Access List. This one covers IPv6 access lists. It's based on Chapter 14 in my book, The Accidental Administrator, Cisco Router Step-by-Step Configuration Guide. The book is certainly not required, but if you'd like to get a copy to follow along, I'd love for you to have one, and it's available through the usual online resellers, or you can visit www.soundtraining.net/bookstore. Our iOS version is 15.1. You can use these procedures on pretty much any version 12.22t or later. I'll go over that again in just a moment. In this video, we're going to cover IPv6 access control lists, how to configure them, considerations for going through the configuration process, and how to apply them to an interface. We'll also show you some of the options that are available with them. In Part 1, we covered the fundamentals, including standard access lists. In Part 2, we covered more advanced procedures, including extended lists, comments, time ranges, and object groups. And again, in this part, we're going to cover IPv6 access lists. Prerequisites. For this lesson, you should have the following: unrestricted privilege mode access to a Cisco router, an understanding of IPv6 addressing, including subnets and notation, and familiarity and experience working with Cisco iOS IPv4 access lists. Equipment software requirements. One Cisco router running iOS version 12.22t or later. The one I'm using is a Cisco model 1941, but truly any iOS-based router should work as long as it's running that software version or later. You'll also need a computer for your management workstation connected to one interface on the router, a console cable, and terminal emulation software. The one I'm using is PuTTY. Here's your disclaimer. This video is provided solely as a courtesy to you, our viewer. There are no guarantees whatsoever, never are. Do not attempt these procedures on a production router without first testing them for security and suitability in a lab environment. Performing these procedures may open your router to the public internet and subject your network to attack, so make sure you have current backups and take precautions, including data encryption and additional access controls to protect sensitive data. Always good advice and always a good idea. So, let's talk about IPv6 access control lists. Full support for IPv6 ACLs started with iOS version 12.22t. There was some support for IPv6, but the commands that we're going to show you were fully integrated into the iOS starting with version 12.22t and continue to be supported now. As with IPv4 ACLs, they identify and permit or deny traffic flows. Unlike IPv4, only named lists are supported, so you can't use numbered lists other than just as a label, but the syntax that you used with numbered lists on IPv4 is not supported with IPv6. Otherwise, however, as far as named ACLs are concerned, the syntax and rules are very similar to IPv4. Some considerations in working with IPv6 ACLs. Just like IPv4, packets are compared against each entry in a list in sequential order until there's a match. Once a packet matches an entry, all subsequent entries are ignored. There is an implicit deny any at the end of every ACL, so anything that's not explicitly permitted is implicitly denied. And since IPv6 makes extensive use of neighbor discovery, there is an exception to the deny any rule, and that is neighbor discovery is implicitly allowed in IPv6 ACLs. Now, it can be blocked with the use of a deny IPv6 any statement at the end of the list. If for some reason you want to do that, then you would include that deny IPv6 any. But be careful about doing that because that could impede functionality with IPv6. Not could, it will. Here's an example of an IPv6 access control list syntax. This is just a very simple list. We use the command in global configuration mode IPv6 access list, then the name of the list, in this case block router 03. Then 2 deny statements. The first one denies IPv6 traffic from the host at FE80 and so on. I'm not going to read the whole IPv6 address to you, but that's the source. So just like IPv4, it's source then destination, and in this case going to any destination. The next line, very similar, deny IPv6 traffic from host 2001, etc., going to any destination. And then at the end of the list, because of the implicit deny any, we put a permit IPv6 any statement. Now, once you've configured the IPv6 ACL, just like IPv4, you have to apply it to a list, but here's where syntax differs considerably. So we go into interface configuration mode. In this case, I went to interface G0/0, and I use the command IPv6 traffic filter then the name of the list, and in or out. So this is the same place where with IPv4 you would have used an IP access group statement, but here we do IPv6 traffic filter. Not sure why Cisco chose to change it, but it is a little more descriptive than saying IP access group, so perhaps that's why they chose to do it. Then we specify the name of the list and in or out. And in or out is from the perspective of the router, just exactly the same as it is with IPv4. Here's another example of an IPv6 access control list. This one, instead of working with individual hosts, works with a subnet. So here we use IPv6 access-list, and then the name of the list, allow only telnet in this case. Then a permit statement, and we're going to permit TCP traffic. So here it's almost exactly the same as it was with IPv4 from any source. Now here's where it differs because we're using an IPv6 address. This is a network address going to the network 2001:db8:1/64. Unlike IPv4 access lists in earlier versions of the iOS where you had to use the rather obscure and arcane inverse subnet mask, now you can just use a slash value. So CIDR notation works here. And then we specify, as with IPv4, the type of traffic that we want to either block or permit, in this case permitting. We use the qualifier EQ for equals and then telnet. We could also put in 23. Now you'll notice we didn't include a permit IPv6 any statement here because the objective of this list is to allow only telnet. So that's exactly what it does. Now let's do the demo, and we're going to set up a simple access control list to block pings. And the first thing let's do is find out what our IP address is on the router. So we'll do the command show IPv6 interface brief, abbreviating it there as you can see. And there we see the IPv6 address on gigabit Ethernet 0/1. Let's use our mouse to grab it so we don't have to remember that long address. With PuTTY, all we do is select it, and it automatically copies it to the clipboard, so that's done. Now let's go to PowerShell. So now let's try the ping. So we'll type in ping, we'll paste in the IPv6 address of the router, and hit enter, and there you can see we're getting a reply. So what we want to do is block that. So let's go back to the router, and let's configure an IPv6 access control list. So let's first of all go into global configuration mode, and we're going to use the command IPv6 access-list, and we'll give it a name. So block PC. I like to use descriptive names when I can. And now we're going to block ICMP traffic. So let's do deny. And let me show you with a question mark what the options are here. Very similar to IPv4. You can see we can block IPv6. We can do TCP, UDP. In our case, we're going to do ICMP, Internet Control Message Protocol, since that's what ping uses. So ICMP. And going from any source to any destination. We could get very specific with it, but let's just make it easy. And now let's put in a question mark so you can see what the options are here. Quite a few options under ICMP, as you can see. What we want, I'll touch Q to break out of this. What we want is echo request. So let's do echo request. And that's just going to stop the request from coming into the interface. Now, we need to allow any other type of traffic, right? So let's do permit IPv6 from any source to any destination. And now we're done. Or are we? Oh, you're right. We need to apply it to an interface. So let's go to our outside interface on the router, interface G0/1. And we're going to use the command IPv6. And then remember what it was? If it was IPv4, we would do access group. But since it's IPv6, we're going to do traffic filter. We specify the name of the list, block PC, and then in or out. Again, that's from the perspective of the router, and since this is inbound from the PC, we're going to say in and hit enter. Now let's go back over to the PC and open up a PowerShell and see what happens. So we've got PowerShell open. Let's first of all try a ping, so we'll just touch the up arrow to repeat that last command, and as you can see, it's unreachable, but we only blocked ICMP, right? Remember? And we allowed everything else. So let's just see if we can telnet. I'll touch the up arrow and then we'll arrow back over here and change the ping to a telnet. And let's just see what happens. And success. So as you can see, they're very similar to named access control lists in IPv4. A few slight differences, but again, very, very similar to IPv4. If you're comfortable with IPv4, especially named access control lists, then this is going to be pretty easy for you to learn. If you'd like more information, visit our website at www.soundtraining.net. I blog at soundtraining.net/blog. In fact, often we'll include blog posts that are configuration guides to match these videos, so check there and just see if there's one to match any of the videos that you see. You can subscribe to our newsletter at soundtraining.net/newsletter. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. If you'd like more videos, we've got them, and we're always adding new ones at www.soundtraining.net/videos. And if you'd like a copy of the companion book for this video, it's available at our bookstore at www.soundtraining.net/bookstore or through the usual online resellers. Well, I hope it's been helpful for you. For soundtraining.net, I'm Don Crawley. I'll see you next time.